So I was just speaking with the kids a little while ago, in case you didn't notice, about giving thanks. And I want to share with you this morning a place where I got to give thanks to God this week that I wasn't expecting. I got to spend some time with a person that I haven't been able to see in years, someone who's been around most of my life, someone who I grew up with, and for whatever reason, our paths went astray from each other a long time ago, and I got a random call Tuesday morning, and guess who it was? We decided to meet together to have lunch. We came up with a plan. I was going to pick him up with where he lived. And the night before, I spent time talking with my wife about why it was going to happen, what we were going to do, why it mattered so much to me. I gave her way more details than she needed to know. And I went on about what was so important. And then the day of the lunch came. It was Thursday. I was nervous, I was excited, I wasn't sure how things were going to go, and I was getting more and more anxious until I got to see my friend. And then I got there, and I picked him up, and honestly, as soon as things started, I'm not sure I had a real reason to be nervous. Yeah, it had been a long time since we were able to be together, but I didn't need to worry like I did. I was able to be present with him and him with me. We were able to talk about life and family and God. We were able to reconnect again in a way that I feel is meaningful, and I hope he does too. And I'm really praying that this time together isn't going to be an isolated event, but something that can continue and will continue, so that we can kind of draw back together because we both mean a lot to each other. And I want you to think for a second of someone that maybe you would like to reconnect with in your life. Even if it's just connecting in a very small way, I have some good news for you. There's this thing called Thanksgiving coming up. Thanksgiving is a great excuse to reach out to people, to reach out to someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. It doesn't matter if you'll be seeing them on Thanksgiving or not. You can just send a little text message, you can give a call, whatever that might be. But Thanksgiving, well, and Christmas too, it's coming. I know that's scary. There are wonderful reasons, wonderful times that we can connect with each other. Thanksgiving is one of these little windows that we get in our lives in this country that we're able to connect with ease and start making those inroads to heal relationships and to make the positive relationships that we have already even stronger. And this healing and strengthening of relationships, my friends, this is something that we as people of faith need to be all about. The church has always been a place that is about healing. The church is a community, a unique community where people are able to come together regardless of who they are, where they have been, so that they can work with each other on how to heal their relationships with God and with themselves. The church is this amazing community, and when it comes together, healing does happen. Relationships look different, and we have a unique perspective on this, I believe, because of the example that Christ gives for us. Take a look at our gospel text this morning. It may seem odd that we have a text that we would probably more associate with Holy Week than this time of year when we are preparing for Advent, when we are preparing for Christmas. But I can assure you that it's really not that odd of a text to be using. During Advent, which starts next Sunday, we prepare ourselves for the coming of the Christ child, for the Messiah. And at Christmas, we celebrate his arrival. And these are both wonderful and amazing things. but they have considerably less significance if we also don't remember who Christ was and what Christ has done and does for each and every one of us. And in the gospel this morning, we hear what Luke has to say about just this snippet of the time that Jesus is on the cross. There are people all around him who are looking down on him, even though he's probably physically higher than they are. But they speak down to him nonetheless. They're mocking him. They're figuring out who's going to get what of the few little remains that he has for earthly possessions. And in the midst of all of this, in the midst of this truly ugly scene, Jesus isn't focusing on the ugliness in the space that is surrounding him, but he's focusing instead on the people. He's worried for them. He cares for them. And despite the fact that he is imminently facing death, he doesn't focus on himself. In fact, he asks God to forgive them, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Even one of the two men who was on the cross with Jesus couldn't help himself from taking a jab. "You're the Messiah, right?" I'm paraphrasing. You can hear the sneer in his tone. "Why don't you just save yourself and us?" But we know that this is not what happened at that time and in that exact space. Jesus knew what was going to happen. We know what is going to happen. He was going to die because the people around him, just like people today, treat other people like they are worthless. He's going to die because the people around him got things wrong. He was going to die because he tried to make the lives of others better, and he was rejected for doing so. But the other guy, the one that was on the other side of Jesus, who was also on the cross, he got it. He saw what was going on. He might not have understood the full gravity of it, but he knew why he and the other man, so maybe they knew each other, were up there. But it was also clear to him that Jesus wasn't supposed to be. That he didn't do anything to get into the space where he currently found himself. And so he reaches out to Jesus with his words, and he acknowledges Christ's divinity. He says, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He sees beyond the veil of what is obviously happening and asks Jesus to remember him. And my friends, this is huge. This man right here next to Jesus asks him if he can be with him when he takes his throne, and Jesus responds in the way that only God could in that situation. He says, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." This man understood that what was happening in this moment was something beyond just the time and the space that he found himself. I'm going to start paraphrasing again. He was looking at Jesus on the cross and seeing the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation, the one in whom all things were made, who has gone before us to be the firstborn among the dead, and in whom the fullness of God was pleased to dwell. And perhaps most importantly, through him, God was pleased to reconcile all things on earth and in heaven. And although I'm paraphrasing, it might help to think a little bit about that last little piece. That God was pleased to reconcile all things on earth and in heaven to God. That means that through Christ, God is pleased to make things correct again. All the places where the world has gone astray, all the places where we have veered off the path that has been set before us is corrected through this amazing person, the Word of God made flesh, who came to dwell among us. Because of who Christ is, the actions that he took in his time here on earth have changed the very reality in which we live. He was an amazing teacher and prophet, but I think it is clear that Jesus is so much more than a teacher and a prophet. His prophetic teachings are what led him to the cross. But what happened on the cross has ramifications that ripples through all of creation to this very day. The Son of God, who is clean and blameless in every way that we can figure out, and in many more ways that we will never be able to, took onto himself all of the things that are a part of us that separate us from ourselves. He took onto himself everything that is a part of us that separates us and pulls us away from God. And he did this willingly so that true healing can happen in our relationships with each other and with God. God did not need to share this amazing act of love with us. This moment of self-giving. In fact, I think that if the more reasonable choice and outcome, it might have been for God to just let divine judgment come. But God did something more that goes well beyond reason. Christ chose to live like us as human beings, chose to love us after living with us anyways, and chose to give his own life so that we could experience something better. Hear the good news, my friends. Because of the amazing acts of Jesus Christ, we are able to have true healing and reconciliation in our relationships with God and with each other. The grace afforded to us by God through Christ gives us a new reality to experience. And when we bring ourselves before Christ, acknowledging where things have gone astray, our lives change for the better. When we bring ourselves before Christ, we can heal not just the relationship that we have with God, but the relationship we have with all those around us and can ever have around us. And I thought about that this week, when I got to spend that time with my friend that I had not seen in many years. I got to experience a small snippet of Christ's reign present in the moment where I was at. And I say this because it was quite clear that the only way that this was happening, because I don't know how he got my phone number, the only way that this was happening is because God was present with us, working in us, and working through us. Were it not for Christ and the actions that Christ took, I'm not sure that the time between my friend and I to come together and start on a path of healing would have happened. Now, is this relationship with my friend the only relationship that I have that could benefit from this healing that Christ gives us? Sadly, no. But because of God's grace, each one of us is able to seek out the spaces that do need healing and do something about their existence. My friends, we can all seek out to heal the relationships in our lives because Christ makes healing possible out of a gift given on our behalf. So I want to challenge you this week. Use the excuse of Thanksgiving just to reach out to somebody and then let Christ take the healing lead from there. Won't you please pray with me? Amazing God, we give you the utmost thanks this morning, not just for the ability to be together in person and online, but also for the truly amazing gifts that you bestow upon us of love, of grace, of things done on our behalf because we can simply not do them for ourselves. God, thank you for the gift of your Son, for his choice to love us despite everything else. And may you be with us, leading us and guiding us in those healing moments to be more your disciples in all that we do. Amen.